Today we'll discuss the diaphragm. Okay, say important for your theory, the diaphragm and the clinical aspects, diaphragmatic hernia and different other clinical aspects comes in your short note. Okay, or explained by questions. The diaphragm is also known as thoracoabdominal diaphragm. We have other diaphragms in our body, oral diaphragm, pelvic diaphragm. Okay, so this is known as thoracoabdominal diaphragm, separating the thoracic cavity from the abdominal cavity. So it separates the thoracic cavity from the abdominal cavity, and it is the principal muscle of respiration. Okay, it is dome sepate, musculo-aponeurotic partition, and it has muscular domes, right and left domes, and a central tendon. And the right dome of diaphragm lies at a higher level than the left dome due to the location of the liver. Liver is located on the right side, so it pushes the right dome upward. Okay. So see here, this is the two domes of the diaphragm. Right dome, left dome, and in the middle part is the central tendon. Okay. And here it is laterally attached to the rib cage. So what are the origins of the diaphragm? The domes of diaphragm projects into the thoracic cavity. Okay. It has these three groups of fiber of origin: sternal origin, costal origin, and vertebral origin. Sternal origin, it consists of two fleshy sleeves, and that arise from the back of the xiphoid process. Okay. And costal origin. Costal part arises from inner surface of lower six ribs and their costal cartilages. Next is vertebral part, vertebral origin. It consists of right and left crura and five arcuate ligaments. See here, these are the two crura, right crura and left crura. Right crus is extending up to from L1 to L3 vertebral body on the anterior aspect of the vertebra, and a left crus extending from L1 to L2. Okay, so right crus is elongated than the left one. So crura are elongated muscular sleeves, and right crus arises from the right side of anterior surface of L1 to L3 vertebra and corresponding intervertebral disc. And left crus is smaller than the right crus and arises from left side of anterior surface of L1 and L2 vertebra and corresponding intervertebral disc. So this is right crus and left crus. Okay. Vertebral levels are important, asked in your Viva and MCQ. Okay, these two crus. Next we'll discuss the arcuate ligaments. Okay, these are also important for your Viva MCQs and the structures passing posterior to this arcuate ligaments. So there are five arcuate ligaments. One is median arcuate ligament, two medial arcuate ligament, and two lateral arcuate ligaments. Median arcuate ligament, it arches between the upper ends of right and left crura. Here, median arcuate ligament. And medial arcuate ligament arches between the L2 vertebra to the tip of the transverse process of L1 vertebra. L2 vertebra to tip of transverse process of L1 vertebra, medial arcuate ligament. Next is lateral arcuate ligament. Here this one is lateral arcuate ligament, arches between the tip of transverse process of L1 up to the 12th rib. Okay, so these are the attachment of the arcuate ligaments. Okay, next, so we have discussed the origin. Next we are going to the insertion of the diaphragm. All the fibers from this, all the fibers converge to insert into the central tendon. This white portion is the central tendon. Okay, here it is the insertion of the diaphragm. What is central tendon? Central tendon is a aponeurotic sheet and it is trifoliate shaped. Have three triangular median, it has a single triangular median or anterior leaflet and two tongue-shaped posterior leaflets, right and left. Okay, so it is trifoliate shaped central tendon. One is anterior leaflet and on the two sides, two tongue separate posterior leaf lifts, right and left. It is fused superiorly with the fibrous pericardium. Okay. Next, next we are going to different openings of the diaphragm. Okay. This is aortic opening, osteoaponeuritic opening, posterior to the median arcuate ligament. There are major openings and minor openings. Majors are three large openings. Okay. So first we will discuss the major and minor. So this is aortic opening lying posterior to the median arcuate ligament. This is esophageal opening through which passes the esophagus, vagus, right and left vagus and esophageal branches of the left gastric arteries. And here is the vena cava opening through which passes the inferior vena cava. Inferior vena cava enters into the right atrium through this vena cava opening, and right phrenic nerve is passing through this opening. Okay, and through the aortic opening passes the descending thoracic aorta and becomes abdominal aorta, thoracic duct, azygous vein. Okay, so these are the three major openings, and other smaller openings in front of the sternum in the parasternal region. Here is foramen of Morgagni, okay, through which passes the superior epigastric vessels, and here deep to the medial arcuate ligament passes the sympathetic trunk, and deep to the lateral arcuate ligament, posterior to the lateral arcuate ligament passes the subcostal nerve and subcostal vessels. And these structures, these splanchnic nerves, greater and lesser splanchnic nerves, they pierce the two cruras. Okay. So these are the minor openings of the diaphragm. Next, so openings in the diaphragm. Openings of the diaphragm are grouped as major opening and minor openings. Major openings include the vena cava opening, esophageal opening and aortic opening. And minor openings gives passage to smaller structures. Okay, so we have discussed the different structures passing through different openings. So small openings are each crus is pierced by greater splanchnic nerve and lesser splanchnic nerve. Additionally, the left crus is also pierced by the hemiazygous vein. Okay, azygous vein is passing through the aortic opening, and hemiazygous vein is piercing through the left crus. Okay. Next is behind the medial arcuate ligament passes the sympathetic chain, passes from thorax to the abdomen. You have seen in the picture. Next, behind the lateral arcuate ligament passes the subcostal nerve and subcostal vessels. And Larry's space or foramen of Morgagni in front near the sternum, parasternal region. So here through the Larry's space or foramen of Morgagni, passage of superior epigastric vessels and some lymphatic. This is very frequently asked. Spaces of Larry or foramen of Morgagni and structure passing through it. Okay. Superior epigastric vessels and lymphatics. Next is musculophrenic vessels pierce the diaphragm at the level of 9th costal cartilage. Okay. So these are the different minor openings and structures passing through these openings. Next we are going to nerve supply. It is supplied by phrenic nerve. Phrenic nerve root value is C3, C4 and C5. And sensory supply comes from, sensory supply for central part of the diaphragm is supplied by the phrenic nerve, and peripheral part by lower 6th to 7th intercostal nerves. Okay. So phrenic nerve is main nerve supply for the diaphragm. Both the sensory and motor fibers are there in the phrenic nerve. Okay. Next we are going to the arterial supply. There are branches of internal thoracic artery. These are the two branches, two terminal branches, musculophrenic artery and pericardiacophrenic artery. These two will supply the diaphragm, and branches of aorta. These branches will supply lower 5 posterior intercostal and subcostal arteries, superior phrenic artery and inferior phrenic artery. All these are arising from the descending thoracic aorta and upper part of the abdominal aorta. Okay. So they will supply the diaphragm. And the veins correspond to the arteries and drain into the systemic veins. Okay. So this is venous drainage of the diaphragm. Okay, understood? Next. Next is lymphatic drainage. So diaphragm is drained into this following group of lymph nodes: anterior, posterior, right lateral and left lateral diaphragmatic lymph nodes. Okay, according to their location they have been named. Next we are going to actions of the diaphragm. Its main action is inspiration. Inspiration, diaphragm is the principal muscle of respiration, and on contraction, the diaphragm descends downward and vertical diameter of the thoracic cavity increases, and it helps to create more negative intrathoracic pressure and inhalation of the air. Okay. So main function is inspiration. Other functions are it helps in micturition, defecation, vomiting and parturition. And it supports the vertebral column by increasing the intra-abdominal pressure during the weightlifting. And it helps in venous return to the heart by decreasing the intrathoracic pressure, and it will lead to suction action, suck the blood into the heart, and increasing the intra-abdominal pressure compresses the abdominal veins. Okay, compresses the abdominal veins and decreases the intrathoracic pressure, so helps in venous drainage into the heart. And esophageal sphincter, sphincteric action by contraction of the arching fibers of right crust over the diaphragmatic esophageal opening. Okay, there is a loop of fiber from the right crust around the esophageal opening of the diaphragm. Okay, and it acts as a sphincteric action for this opening. Next there is paradoxical movement. In case of paralysis of one dome of the diaphragm or both the domes of the diaphragm, there will be paradoxical movement of the diaphragm during the respiration. Okay. Normally, in normal respiration, during inspiration, generally the diaphragm descends and chest wall moves outward so that intrathoracic space is increased and interthoracic pressure becomes more negative. Okay. And during paralysis of the diaphragm, here right half of the diaphragm is paralyzed. This right dome of diaphragm moves opposite to the normal movement. Normally it was descending downward, so left dome is normal, so left is descending downward, but right dome is pulled due to negative pressure in the interthoracic cavity, it will be pulled upward. Okay, and this opposite movement of paralyzed part of the diaphragm is known as paradoxical movement of the diaphragm. Okay, understood? Next. So paralysis of diaphragm, it occurs due to damage to the nerve supply. Phrenic nerve leads to paralysis of the diaphragm. And in unilateral paralysis of diaphragm, the paralyzed dome of diaphragm remains elevated during the inspiration. See, this paralyzed dome remains elevated during inspiration and moves downward in expiration, and this is called paradoxical movements, opposite to the normal movement. And it can be observed on radiological fluoroscopy real-time viewing, and bilateral paralysis may lead to respiratory failure. Diaphragm is the main muscle for inspiration, so if it becomes completely paralyzed, there will be respiratory failure. Okay. Hiccups. How hiccup occurs? Irritation of the diaphragm may cause spasmodic involuntary contraction of the diaphragm, and it produces the hiccup. Okay. And diaphragmatic hernia, it is the protrusion of abdominal contents into the chest through a defective diaphragm, and it may be congenital or acquired. Okay. So diaphragmatic hernia we will discuss in details. Next, Diaphragmatic hernia very frequently comes in your theory, part of long question or short note. Okay. See, this is the major sites of diaphragmatic hernia. Here, this is site of Bogdale's hernia, and this is site of Morgagni's hernia. Here, sternal origin of the diaphragm is absent. Okay, the sleeves arising from the posterior aspect of the sternum is absent. The opening, minor openings on the two sides, space of Larrey is enlarged, and our foramen of Morgagni is enlarged, and herniation occurs through this opening. And this is also another site of Bogdale's hernia. Next, so congenital diaphragmatic hernia occurs due to failure of proper formation of the diaphragm. And congenital diaphragmatic hernia is this of three types. Bogdale's hernia is posterolateral hernia. You can see the location. It is located posterolateral part of the diaphragm. Bogdale's hernia, and about 95% cases of congenital diaphragmatic hernia are of Bogdale's hernia occurs due to failure of contribution of the pleuroperitoneal membrane to the diaphragm. Okay. So pleuroperitoneal membrane was forming the peripheral part of the diaphragm. So in this area, this pleuroperitoneal membrane does not contribute in the development, and there is formation of a gap in the diaphragm, and it will lead to Bogdale's hernia. Next is Morgagni hernia. This is the site of Morgagni hernia. Retrosternal or parasternal hernia, also known as retrosternal and parasternal because of the location. And it occurs through the foramen of Morgagni or space of Larrey. Okay. Next is diaphragmatic eventration. It refers to abnormal contour of diaphragmatic dome because of paralysis, aplasia, or atrophy to varying degrees of muscle fibers. Okay. So this is diaphragmatic eventration. This is another type of congenital diaphragmatic hernia. Next is another two types of hernia, sliding hiatal hernia and rolling hiatal hernia. These two are acquired diaphragmatic hernia. It develops later on. Okay, congenital is present at birth, and this acquired one develops later on. So you see this is normal stomach and esophagus. This is gastroesophageal junction. This is normal position, and this shadow, this is diaphragm. So normally gastroesophageal junction lies below the esophageal opening of the diaphragm. But in sliding hiatal hernia, see this gastroesophageal junction is pushed upward through the esophageal opening. So this is sliding hiatal hernia. And in rolling hiatal hernia, this gastroesophageal junction lies in its normal position, but the fundus of the stomach is pushed upward through the esophageal opening. See, this fundus of the stomach is herniating. So this is rolling hiatal hernia. So this is the difference between sliding hiatal hernia and rolling hiatal hernia. Important for your Viva and MCQs also. Okay. So if diaphragmatic hernia comes in your short note, you have to write both congenital diaphragmatic hernia and acquired diaphragmatic hernia. Next. So acquired diaphragmatic hernia may be due to traumatic hernia, and it is sliding hiatal hernia or rolling hiatal hernia. In sliding hernia, a part of stomach protrudes into the thoracic cavity through the esophageal opening here. Esophageal opening of the diaphragm, and it occurs due to old age, obesity, chronic cough, and so on. And it may result in gastroesophageal reflux disease and gastric ulcers. And sliding hernia is the commonest of all the internal hernias. Okay. Next is rolling hiatal hernia. In this, gastroesophageal junction remains within the abdominal cavity, and fundus of the stomach bulges into the thoracic cavity. Okay. So these are the difference between sliding hernia and rolling hernia. Different openings, origin, insertion, all those can come as a long question. And you prepare the diaphragmatic hernia as a short note, and individual openings of the diaphragm, very very important, and structures passing through the openings. It can come as a individual short note. Okay, openings, the major openings, minor openings you have to write. Major openings you must write. Okay, and practice a schematic diagram for the openings of the diaphragm. Okay, these three openings, aortic opening, vena cava opening, esophageal opening, you must write, and the structures passing through these openings. Okay, and the during respiration there is some changes occurs in the shape of the openings. Aortic opening does not change with respiration. Okay, because it is osteoaponeurotic. Posterior part is formed by the vertebral body and anterior part is formed by the ligament, median arcuate ligament. Okay, vena cava opening, it enlarges during the inspiration to increase the venous return, and esophageal opening, it decreases during the inspiration. Okay, so this also can be asked in your viva and may come in your part of the long question. Okay, what changes occur in different openings of the diaphragm during inspiration and expiration. Okay, so aortic opening, no changes. Vena cava opening enlarges during inspiration. Esophageal opening reduces during inspiration, and opposite occurs during the expiration. Okay, vena cava opening will decrease in size, and esophageal opening will increase in size during expiration. Okay, understood?